Everyone has a good story to tell, and you know it is a good story when the person leans in and says, "See, what had happened was," and then tells the story.
This podcast provides those opportunities to tell those types of stories in education. The stories will be from the good, the bad, and everything in between. We wanted to do this podcast to showcase stories in education and to give flowers to educators who deserve recognition for their excellence.
Our guests will feature parents, students, teachers, administrators, and just about anyone who is involved in education. These stories will inspire you, challenge you, and help you to reflect on your practice of education, whether it be from the inside of the classroom or outside.
If you have a good story to tell, we'd love to hear it. Email us at contact@andredowdy.org. We'd love to have you or your story on a future episode. See What Had Happened starts now.
Welcome to another episode of See What Had Happened. We're the co-hosts Andre and Danielle Daughty, and we are so glad that you are tuning in, watching, or listening today with us.
Hey, and spread out to all of you who have followed us since episode 1. We really appreciate you. Hey, and if this is your first time joining us and you would like to listen to previous episodes, you can follow us on all podcast platforms. And if you are watching this on our YouTube channel, shout out to you too.
Shout out to you.
Today's guest is a former district teacher of the year, an adjunct professor. This superwoman has, count them, two whole master's degrees, and will soon get her PhD in creative writing. Please welcome to the show, Melanie Davis Sanchez. Hi, Melanie.
Hello. Thank you so much for that introduction. Oh, yes. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Anybody with 2 masters, they all right with me.
Okay.
And then they said, I got enough of it. I'm going to get a PhD.
Okay.
Oh,
yes.
my goodness. Yes.
Love it.
So I'm just curious, when did you decide to say, I'm going to pursue this PhD?
In the midst of my second master's, being one of like maybe 2 Black people in the program, the master's students would be with the doctoral students, and it would be just one sister that was in there. There's hardly any Black males, but representation matters.
Yes.
And to be the first on both sides of my family, it's needed for us to have those trailblazers. Just like I have cousins that, nursing and doing these great things, I want to give that honor to my family as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's tell the listeners a little bit about you. Who is Melanie Davis Sanchez?
Well, I am originally born and raised Shreveport, Louisiana, and I am the middle child of 5. My oldest brother Jason, I have a brother named Josh, then my younger brother Jeremy, who has since passed on, and then my little sister Monica. So I am the middle child, and just as they say, the whole, weird things of the middle child, I think that I'm truly that one. My father, he's the youngest of 14.
Wow.
He's the youngest of 14. His parents were sharecroppers. My father really instilled education in us at a very young age. I remember him forcing us to go to the library and read books, just all these different things about what I do and who I am. It really surrounds with a pen and paper, with me being able to be creative, to look at creativity and to embrace uniqueness of other people so that I can embrace my own uniqueness. And that's been a journey. That's a whole nother podcast for another time to talk about the journey of loving self when you're so different from everyone. But I've learned to really embrace that and to share that with others through my vocation of being an educator.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Did you learn that in the later years, or did you learn that early on?
I would say later years. It was like one interesting fact. I like that y'all, put that in there for me to put in. Like one interesting fact about me is that I performed as an underground hip hop artist under the name Cayenne Laredo. I have a mixtape and everything.
Okay.
I was featured on a mixtape out here in Houston, Texas. I live in Houston now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always recite raps, write lyrics, and freestyle at a very young age. And like I would be in sports too, but I would always try to freestyle or be where the boys at and do those kinds of things. And then growing into hip hop, and that's my real focal point, especially pursuing a PhD in creative writing and literature. My thesis now is this prominence of hip hop, how it empowers all around the world. And it's like it's the only genre where you have a group of people that are in a despondent situation, but still see themselves as kings and queens.
Right.
And that's what I love about hip hop. And that's really, truly what inspires me to be who I am and do what I do. and be able to read and assimilate, which I have to do in, different places and organizations. But at the same time, hip hop has been my love since I was at least 4 or 5 years old. And anybody that knows me knows that, oh yeah, Melly Mel or Cayenne Laredo, that girl knows she loves hip hop. Definitely.
I cannot help but think, what's the movie?
Brown Sugar?
When did you fall in love with hip-hop?
Fall in love with hip hop?
Yes.
Straight up.
Yes.
And then it makes me think, like, I love how you said it took you a while to really come into your own of that, because, I mean, as you know, hip hop was not very well welcomed in the 80s, the 90s, and then somewhere around the 2000s when it kind of started to switch. And I realized that hip hop started to get popular when I heard Larry King saying some of the lines. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Time out. Time out here.
Yep.
Larry King is now quoting Jay-Z. Okay, hold on a moment. Wait a minute.
And imagine, we're all from the South, and I'm listening and looking at Young TV raps. And so I'm listening to Jay-Z. I'm listening to Lords of the Underground, KRS-One. And I'm in the South in Louisiana. And this is before Master P and them came about. But my oldest brother, Jason, what he would do with us just about every day, we would ride in his in this van, and he would play different music. It'd be UGK, 8Ball, MJG, Half Pint, just all different kind of music. So I was in every kind of genre, even got into the West Coast hip hop with Farside and
Cube,
Jungle Brothers and Cube, Ice-T, all of that. So I grew up in hip hop, and then distinguishing between conscious hip hop rap and gangster rap, and now teaching others, especially when my colleagues, there's this thing where all they know are Tupac and Biggie and gangster rap, and that's it. And it's like, well, no, it's different. You should really look at your resources and what you're looking at. Hip hop is so widespread, and it's just not music, it's art, it's dance, it's, fashion and style, like Salt and Pepper, like Miss Danielle, I used to have that shaved side.
Did you really?
Okay.
Mushroom.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Come on.
I love that. But, everybody else, especially in the South, it's different. It was different.
It's different.
But now I don't care. My husband bought me some cross-colored T-shirts. I have some cross-colored.
Wait a minute. Where did he find those?
Yeah, hold on. We can't skip past that. Hold on. Shout out to the husband finding those, because
he sure did. I think he bought me 3 of them because he knows how much I love hip hop. I met him, towards the end. I won't say the end of my career, but me coming off stage performing, and he and I getting together. So I haven't performed as of late, but now I'm moving into more creative, like trying to. Right now, I'm building a script around Cayenne Laredo. I have a book out, an ebook called Cayenne Laredo, the Superhero, Episode 1. And, really going into this journey, what I didn't know before of me, I know it now. Show it?
Come on.
Yeah.
You got to show the tag on the back, too.
There it is, right there. Oh, it's official now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man. I love that, because, once again, hip-hop is a culture. It's not a fad, even though some people thought it was a fad and they thought that it would go away. And I remember even hearing so many pundits talk about, there's a fad and it'll go away. But it was actually embraced because it was real life, When you think about, sometimes it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Like, that's telling the story. That's for real, know. It wasn't just a fad. They were spitting, they were waxing poetic for real in real life, Those things really did happen.
There's what in some of my research with hip hop, there's in Sudan, or you have Sudanese refugees when they are pushed to go into Australia, they'll put like 8 to 10 people in like a 1-bathroom, 1-room studio place, and the first thing that they create for themselves is a makeshift studio. Because being able to spit lyrics, do poetry, spoken word, like that changes somebody's dynamic wherever they are. And, other genres are great, but hip hop is embraced by all around the world. Agreed. By French, German, and Amsterdam. There's so much scholarship that supports that the movement that hip hop gives people that are in these kinds of situations, like it's the only genre that makes you empower yourself by your situation. And that was, it was profound to see that in a lot of scholarship, is how even in Cuba they have two national festivals around hip hop to, for economy purposes, but also to connect the community with each other, and to make them stronger, and to make the community be, have more networking behind hip hop. And it's beautiful to look in that, but a lot of people don't know. They want to see, the mainstream instead of what's really going on in real life.
Every story starts with a setup. Melanie, go ahead and set up the story for us.
So my first year as a classroom teacher, this was at Lakeshore Elementary School in Shreveport, Louisiana, around 2006, 2007. I had a student, his name was Travion Hunter. And one thing that I definitely learned was to have an understanding with the family, because he was a class clown, he was the comedian, he was a sweet child, and he was so smart and all these different things. I mean, one blessing that I had in my very first year of teaching was that it was a village approach, because it was in a neighborhood in Queensboro. My mother's home, my grandfather, I had several aunts and friends that were in this neighborhood, and then their children or grandchildren or cousins or what have you would be students at this school. So in this very first year, I was teaching fourth grade again, reading and language, and I was the teacher in this. What had happened was that the day we had distributed report cards to students, and Travion Hunter, he was one of the students. He received a report card that year, and it was really good. It was so good that his uncle Nick was like, okay, well, I'm going to take you to the mall to go buy a racer jacket. And these were the racer jackets, like they were collarless, and they'd have like either M&Ms or some kind of cartoon character on the back. And he really wanted one. I remember that was the style back then. And I remember that day at recess, he had a fight with one of, they were playing football, and he had a fight that day with another student. And we talked it out, conflict resolution. Most Louisiana children, they get into fights. That was one thing definitely I learned. This is my first year teaching, is that you have to de-escalate, or else this could go into the neighborhood. And so we had to de-escalate the situation on campus.
Hold on, wait a minute. Your neighborhood sounds like my neighborhood. We can play all day long, but as soon as one person loses or one team loses, oh, we got a squad. We got to go at it. Conflict resolution. We'll throw a football at you or something. You beat me, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't. We were able to resolve it at that time, and that's something definitely that I learned, especially throughout my years as an educator, is that you want to, hyper focus on what's the real problem and resolve it and move on. Don't ever let anything fester when it comes to children. And so that was that day, and so that was a Friday evening. That next morning, that Saturday, I got a call from my assistant principal. Her name was Rita Gwynn. And she asked me, had I got a call from anyone yet? And I was like, no, why would I? It's the weekend, what happened or whatever. And then she went on to share that there was a drive-by shooting, and Travion was killed. I was in shock again, because this is my first time as a classroom teacher. And it really hit me hard at that time to think that, this student that I just saw yesterday, he was killed. Yeah. And so that Monday, that whole weekend, I'm back and forth talking to my co-teacher, Miss Dixon, Connie Dixon, and we're just dealing with, oh my goodness, how do we deal with this? Like, what's going to happen? And you see it on the news. And then on Monday, when it came in, it was even more of a shock, because remember, this is a neighborhood together, and a lot of the students, as soon as they came in, Miss Davis, Travion got shot, he in the hospital, he got shot. But hearing them say that, nobody knew that he had died. And so we were like, okay, we're waiting for the counselors to come in. When are they going to come in and speak to them? And it was almost lunchtime, and we couldn't teach, because the children were like, we saw him get shot. And then some students were like, he didn't make it, Ms. Davis. They didn't know what to say. And then so Ms. Dixon and I came together and said, because she taught the math and science, and I said, well, let's bring the students together and let's go ahead and have a conversation with them and let them know that Travion did die that day. This same day, Trayvion's grandmother. She would walk him to school, rain or shine. And I remember she came up to the campus. She walked up the hall. She had tears streaming down her face because she says, I have to do this. I have to walk up this hall, walk him to his desk like I regularly did, or else I'm going to lose it. And, we ran to her. We held her hand. She walked in my classroom, walked to the desk, rubbed the desk, and she went on to tell us, what happened, that he had gotten shot. He got bullets in the back of his head. She was holding him, and he was saying grandma, 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 and it was just a lot of things coming out of the back of his head, and he died in her arms. And I remember trying to teach a social studies lessons about law enforcement and living in a community where people work together and everything. And then the students became so upset because they were like, no, that's a lie, because Trayvion would be alive if the police would do their job. And then to add to that too, that whole snitches get stitches thing, like, a lot of students were too scared to speak because there were some students that saw what happened. But they took, and I was like, well, why don't y'all talk to the police and let's talk to the counselor? And they were like, how it go down in the hood. Like, we can't sit up there and have that conversation or share that, or else we're going to get shot. And they never did find, this was in 2007. They didn't ever find who shot at him. They were actually shooting at the uncle, from what I understood. And the uncle, he was okay. He ended up living. He tried to block Trayvion's body from the bullets, but it was too late. And he ended up passing away through that. And that's one of the biggest things that really hit me in my first year teaching. There was a trend of other children in our neighborhoods, in other campuses, that were getting shot and killed there. Even to the point that the Mayor Glover at that time, visited the classroom, more like a public opportunity thing to take pictures and everything. And then the counselors that they sent, they really didn't, at that time, I was upset because they didn't really counsel the children.
Right.
They gave them these little fuzzy balls and said, you should, feel this way and then move on from there. And then they charged us to still look and see if they're being withdrawn, if anything, then try to do this and that. And I'm like, I'm not a counselor, I'm just a teacher. And we need help with that. And so with that being my very first year of teaching, that really set the stage for my 17 plus years now of wanting to really establish good, positive relationships with parents, with families, with the communities. When I look back at that story, one advice or a tip that I think about is having the trust of the parents, because parents send their children to school and we don't know what's going on in their homes.
Right.
We have no idea what goes on. And the school is supposed to be a place of safety. It's supposed to be a place where students can go and know that they have a future. And that was one of the things that they would say, is that Trayvion loved going to school. He loved learning and really wanted to be something in life. And I still can see his face. They still have the article online for anybody who wants to see Trayvion Hunter when he passed away. And it was just a real moment for me. And if for any opportunity that I can share on the life and legacy of Trayvion Hunter, is that he definitely has made me the educator that I am today, to give everyone a chance to live and to be something great.
How did you all, I'm just curious here, how did you all I won't even say overcome, because it's not really even overcome. How did you all deal with it through that year?
Oh, it was a lot of prayers, a lot of hand holding, and it just, the idea that, it's dangerous. It's really dangerous out here, and children raising children. A lot of, like I said, a lot of friends of mine at that time were having kids, and, some of them, didn't finish school themselves. A lot of times we have grandparents and great grandparents that were raising children. But none of that mattered. Like, it didn't matter. And that was the issue, because I was at Centenary College getting my first master's at that time. And they were like, well, that kind of thing happens at those kinds of schools. And it's like, no, there's no excuse.
Right.
The same curriculum for every campus is supposed to be given for every student, no matter their address, no matter if they look like me or don't. Every student deserves an opportunity to grow and to be great. And that was always the focus. It's to find creative ways, using art, using, hip hop. I had a Freestyle Friday writing camp that I would do. And on Fridays, they get the track, and then they would rap to the beat and explain. Like, I had another student who had a brother who had gotten killed, and he was able to express that in his lyrics, where his brother would feed them, and and then the word tears, he would say the word teals, and then when he spelled it out, it was TILS, and I'm like, no, the word you want is tears, and we were still able to instruct, but also able to reach because of hip hop.
Yeah.
Able to open up that idea of curriculum, but staying true to you, and your story matters. Like, every experience that every student ever has matters, and I still teach that to this day in my college courses, where you should never have to compromise your identity to have to learn or teach somebody something. Like, always be true to you, no matter if it's your gender, your race, your name. I have students that come from Korea or come from all over, and they have to have these normal names. And I'm like, no, we're going to learn your name.
Yeah.
Because I want you to stay true to you.
Yes.
And all these experiences, if your parents were immigrants, if your parents, like my parents at one point, all they had was a high school diploma, that is still part of your development of who you are. That's still your triumph of saying that this is what makes me great, as you pursue other things to make you greater. So you don't have to think that, well, since I don't come from a silver spoon, or I don't come from this neighborhood, none of that matters. You are here to be empowered, and know that you are going to be a king and a queen because of who you are right now and what you're learning to add to that.
Some of the best educators in the world are people you've never heard of. They may not be on TV or get the National Teacher of the Year awards, but we want to give those teachers their flowers today. With that said, we present Sprout Outs. Sprout Outs is sponsored by Pinky and Paws Petals.
Melanie, who would you like to sprout out this episode?
Well, definitely in memory of Travion Hunter and his family, Lisa Pico Hebert. She is an associate professor at DePaul University. She was one of my very first professors when I went to school. And to this day, if there's anything I need from her, I could count on her for a smile, for a recommendation, everything. So Lisa Pico Hebert is one person. Dwazindra Smith, that was a young lady that I met when I was in undergrad as a single mom at the time, trying to go to school, and she was a single mother. Like, you're gonna finish school, you're gonna do this, and she had this tenacity, and dared to say that she was gonna be an attorney, and guess what she is today?
An attorney.
Esquire. She ran for a judge in her district where she lives. She didn't win this one, but the next one that she does, like, she is an amazing person to speak to look at, to be inspired by. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dwazindra Smith. The St. Elmo's Brady STEM Academy at University of Houston, they do great things for communities to teach students and their families about STEM opportunities, and to reach out to make certain that it's a community effort as the students learn from that. And last but not least, I got to give a shout out to AdaptiveX. AdaptiveX is one of the best opportunities to teach and reach through culturally responsive teaching to campuses and students and communities all over the nation. And I'm so thankful to be a part of the team at AdaptiveX.
We believe when one wins, we all win. Melanie, how can we help you win?
One way, there's two I'm going to state. One is AdaptiveX. Like, I really want to push AdaptiveX, being able to be serviced at different campuses all across the nation, all across the world, even in different districts, charter schools, because it is making changes and changing lives, especially in the political climate that we find ourselves in. I would love the opportunity to speak out at different schools and different personnel. Shayla Adams Stafford, the CEO, is a wonderful leader who leads us as like Avengers, like superheroes, to really change the course for our children and our students to be great and to be themselves and never compromise their identities or their cultures or anything, and be who they are. And having the campuses to embrace that as well. So AdaptiveX, you can go to that website and check us out there. If anybody would like to share well wishes, some funding opportunities, it can be shared to my email at educatormd@gmail.com.
If you enjoy the See What Had Happened podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and share on all podcast platforms. Remember, your ratings and reviews help us get more noticeable on all podcast sites. All right. Well, that's the end of this story, but it's not the last. We thank you, Melanie. Hey, and don't forget to join us on the next episode of See What Had Happened.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast.